This is a Bronica EC. Got it a few years ago, I think like 3 or 4 years ago now. I was working at the warehouse at the time and listening to Nico's photography show podcast. I think he only did like 1 or 2 episodes about it. And in that, he's talking to a photographer. They're talking about Bronicas, how great they used to be. And you could buy like 1 or 2 of them for the price of a Hasselblad and like shoot weddings with them. And they were affordable, well built. I was thinking to myself like, man, I don't really have a lot of money. And I kind of wanted to get another medium format, so I'll look into these Bronicas. Found this one on eBay for parts are not working, $100, and I was like, I'll take the gamble, I'll take the risk. It came in the mail and it was covered in just corrosion and mold and grossness. So I cleaned it off and it starts working. So I think to myself, hey, it's $100, not bad. Honestly, didn't really shoot with it much for the last 3 or 4 years. The past like 2 years, I probably shot with it more than just about any other medium format camera I have. And there's a few reasons behind that. We'll start with maybe obvious question of, I've had this camera for 3 or 4 years. Why is it just now that in 500 plus videos am I talking about it? I think that's because a few weeks ago, you might remember I tried buying another Bronica and that didn't really work out because I wanted to kind of do a Bronica video, talk about the two cameras, similarities, differences in the brand. That didn't really come to fruition because I got scammed, got the money back, so we're good there. But I still have this and I still want to talk about it. Try to take like a little photo walk video. All right, I think I'm gonna go for this shot here. That's good. That's a good sound. With it, that didn't really work out. Tried recording a couple different other videos with it. That didn't really work out. And I've really had a hard time finding a way to give this camera the flowers I feel like it deserves. And I think what it really needs is a good long road trip where I'm just shooting with this and I can really wax some more lyrical about my appreciation for it. But until that happens, I do still want to talk about it because it is a very unique camera in where it falls in my hierarchy of cameras. It's far from my favorite camera, but it's also far from my least favorite camera. It is a very solid, middle of the pack contender, my least favorite camera. And here's why. It's a 6x6 camera with an electronically controlled shutter. It came out in 1972. It is a tank of a system. It's very heavy, but it's modular, so you can take off this film back. If you had different film and another film back, you can swap that out, so it's very nice for professionals in that regard. You can also take the lens off, obviously, and you can interchange this top segment with all sorts of different focusing things. I just have kind of the standard like flip up thing with the magnifier for focus. It's pretty straightforward and standard. This one's a little bit broken, but we don't talk about that. On the side here, you have your shutter speed controls. It goes all the way up to 1/1000th of a second because it's not a leaf shutter, standard SLR shutter with the mirror and a cloth there. You have your advanced crank there with a linkage to the film back here. You can do double exposures. You can also set it to 24 exposures if you have 220 film. I shoot a fair bit of 220 film, so having that option is nice. On the bottom here, you have 2 tripod sockets. If you have the bigger, more professional tripods, which I'm not a professional, so I don't have, but a more standard tripod socket mount there. Battery compartment there as well. Shutter button, lens release button, stop down button there. And you have a battery test button there, flash sync port, cold shoe. The main reasons why I kind of like it is because of this, the lens. So we'll get to that in a second. But we'll talk about medium format more generally speaking. I kind of began my film photography journey with medium format, primarily the Mamiya C330. And to this day, that camera is the most accurate means of rendering reality as I see it. The lens is incredibly sharp. With the 80mm lens on there, that's about what the human eye sees. The ability to focus is fantastic. And I feel like depending on what film you shoot, the colors are very neutral and very balanced. Sometimes, most of the time, feels like I'm literally just taking a snapshot of that moment and I'm sealing it with me onto that film emulsion. Like, that's how it feels. And that's not at all how I feel with this, especially with this lens. This is a 50mm lens, 3.5, so it's not terribly fast, but it's very wide. And there's a lot to really get into with this lens, but first and foremost, it really does hold on to its very swampy origins. You can tell by looking in here, there's quite a few little organisms in there that are thriving. I like to think of those as like my little friends. So if I ever take this out on like a photo walk or a little journey, I'm never really alone because I always have some friends in the lens. But this wide angle, I feel like with the 6x6 negative, I think it just expands everything so much more. And for the longest time, I've wanted a Hasselblad SWC. Like, that's been a dream camera of mine for many, many years, because some of the shots I've seen from that camera, just, they're mind-boggling. Like, just how it reshapes reality and creates this like ultra hyper realistic version of perception. It's like molding your peripheral vision with your actual vision and just creates this like immersive experience in a way that I really can't find any other words to describe. And you kind of get a little bit of it with this lens, and it just kind of delivers a step above what I think the world looks like. It pushes the boundaries of what I think reality is just that much more. And sometimes not for the better. Sometimes it delivers kind of weird results. Sometimes I want to take a picture of something like a little bit further away and it makes it feel so distant and vacant. And that's, again, on me as the composer of the shot, but still, sometimes it just kind of falls short. But other times it is just exactly what I'm looking for and then surpasses that expectation. And even despite the very present mold colony in there, I don't really notice that in the sharpness. And also the ground glass is incredibly dull, so sometimes getting focus is a little bit more of a challenge than needs to be. But in spite of all of that, it still delivers incredibly high quality images that I don't think that I could achieve with any other system. Some cons is that there is a glaring light leak on some images, and I think that's because there's some seals missing on the film back here, and I could probably take it apart, replace the seals. I just haven't really been bothered to in the last 3 to 4 years. It's just really not been high on my list of things to do. But even then, sometimes those light leaks add a quality to the images that otherwise wouldn't be there. And I know that's kind of a dumb thing to say. It's like, oh, I shot things out of focus so it'd be more artistic. Oh, isn't that interesting? But in reality, like, sometimes the images with the light leaks just have a different element to them that, again, I couldn't really achieve otherwise. You don't think when you're going through the images like, oh, I'm so glad that this is out of focus or whatever, or like this has a light leak in it, but there's just something about them that kind of creates a little bit more character. Like this camera doesn't feel like a camera. It feels sometimes like a person. It has different personality quirks and traits and stuff like that, and how they kind of identify themselves in the overall image. And even when I went to do a little photo walk with this, the camera just died. The battery that I had in there for like 3 to 4 years just finally gave out. Again, being kind of temperamental. It was pretty hot that day, and I'm just thinking the camera's like, no, I don't want to do anything today. So ended up not being able to shoot that video. The photos I tried to take with it didn't turn out because the shutter's not working. Again, it's electronically controlled shutter. And it just kind of like emboldens that idea that this is a temperamental camera. And I there's something I kind of like about that. It's very funny. It's not really fair to say that this is a great example of the Bronica brand in general. This is just one of their cameras, and this camera has kind of a host of issues. That's kind of why I wanted to buy another Bronica, talk about the impact that it had and why they're still viable cameras today. And even this model, I think, is a very viable camera. It's big and it's bulky, but you can do so much with it. It's a very, very professional system. If I had a better film back, if I had a different lens on it, like, I would definitely take this to shoot. It looks very professional. It has all of the tools to elevate your photography to that next level, which is fantastic. But this one is just such a quirky little thing, big thing, I should say. But I still absolutely love it. And every time I get the negatives back from it, I'm just mind-boggled at how wonderful some of them look, and then also how terrible some of them look. And I view it as just these huge highs and lows of like, this is the best camera ever. God, I hate this camera so much. Oh, this is the best camera ever. Oh, I hate this camera so much. And again, all of the issues that I have with this camera, I could correct. I could fix the light seals. I could get better at loading the film properly so that way I don't waste a complete roll of film. That's happened a few times. I don't want to talk about it, but Anyway, I could get a different lens with less mold in there, a different focus screen that's brighter, easier to get focus from, but that's not really the point. The point is I got this for $100, and for a $100 medium format camera, I think it's performed exceptionally well. And yes, there's been issues and there's been problems and blah, 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 but like, I love it for that. I think it's fantastic, even in spite of all those issues. I have not set this up for success whatsoever, and yet it consistently delivers on all of these fronts and surpasses my expectations at every turn. But it's still terrible at some points, and yes, that's my fault. I can fix it, and I probably will at some point. But ultimately, I just wanted to take a minute to like share some appreciation for something that I've used so much. It's kind of been in the background, and maybe I've talked about it in a video, maybe I've mentioned it or something like that, but I don't really give it the flowers I think it fully deserves. And for that, I just wanted to break the trend of 3 to 4 years running of having this camera and not talking much about it. Take this past 10 minutes of video, share my thoughts and feelings about this camera, share some of the images, and just talk a little bit about it, because I think it's definitely deserved that. And then some. I think that the best way to really share more of my experiences would be to just take this on a road trip and shoot exclusively with it, really play into the strengths of this camera, because I think it captures the grand scale of the world so much better than I can do just here talking at my desk. But until that happens, I just wanted to, again, share some thoughts, share the impact it's had on me, and then also share some photos I've taken with it, because they are some of my favorite. And the moments that I've captured with this camera, I don't think I could have captured with any other camera. And it's very rare that I find myself saying that, because I speak on this channel a lot about how you can use just about any camera to capture an image, and what matters is the film, the photographer, all of that stuff. But I feel like with this camera in particular, in certain instances, like this is the camera that I need. No other camera can deliver what this camera can. And eventually I'll fix some of the issues with it and it will just be a consistent camera. But really, for the time being, this is just one of my least favorite cameras. It doesn't deliver on a lot of the things I want it to sometimes, but yet it finds a way to create so much more out of a moment than I could even imagine before. This is a Bronica EC. I think they're great. Obviously has issues, but just wanted to talk about it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Like it if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more of the me rambling and all that. Appreciate the support. I'll catch you on the next one.